Welcome to MBA 543, St. Francis University. This is Selling and Sales Management, and I'm Adam Conrad, your instructor. We're now looking at Chapter 6, and a couple of the learning objectives for Chapter 6 include the importance of developing product solutions that add value. Make sure we're good on the screen there. Describe the importance of becoming an expert regarding product knowledge. Describe the importance of becoming an expert regarding company knowledge. Describe how expert knowledge of competition and industry trends improves personal selling. List major sources of product, competitor, and industry information, and explain how to add value with a feature-benefit strategy. And I'll turn that into that feature advantage benefit discussion as well. Okay, so 6 key learning items for this chapter, for Chapter 6. So product strategy, clearly the product is your service or your software, your service, your product, the tangible hard goods, or some combination of these. Sometimes you'll have a product that actually has a software component. I got a gift for Christmas that was actually a cup. It was a mug that actually has an app that you can actually use to control the temperature of a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. So you think about that, there's a product and there's actually an accompanying service with it. And that's a simple consumer version of that. Imagine on an industrial scale, the application involved with reprogramming the flight deck for a major airliner, for example. So a product strategy is a well-conceived plan that emphasizes becoming a product expert, selling specific benefits, and configuring value-added solutions. It helps make correct decisions concerning the selection and positioning of products to meet identified customer needs. So you're going to take the customer needs, you're going to figure out what are the products that we're going to offer that meet those needs, and how we're going to position those in the market. And position is, of course, it's a component of price and the product matrix. What are we going to offer in terms of service level? We're going to talk about all kinds of things like that. So the strategic step in the strategic consultative selling model is, again, you'll recall from Chapter 2 that after the development of a personal selling philosophy and a relationship strategy, the development of a product strategy is the next step. So you got these 3 key prescriptions in Chapter 6, which is, develop that personal selling philosophy, develop a relationship strategy, and develop a product strategy. So so if you look at the prescription, adopt that marketing concept, you value personal selling, and you become a problem solver or a partner. Again, maintaining high ethical standards, projecting a professional image we've talked about, and managing the relationship process. Now, we're going to talk about becoming a product expert, selling specific benefits, and doing that configure value-added solutions. So when you're selling a solution versus a product, this is where you're moving from just selling, and this is, I talked about the feature advantage benefit. A solution is a mutually shared answer to a recognized customer problem. So the solution is, this is how this is going to fix this for you. It's not simply just a product itself. It may be in combination with support services, some software. So in sales, the solution is more than that just specific product. It provides measurable results that you can pinpoint, like productivity gains, increased profit, lower employee turnover, better client employee satisfaction. So selling a solution versus selling a product requires a greater effort because you have to figure out what the customer problem is, and then you have to be able to diagnose that and then essentially write that prescription. We talked about that prescriptive selling from earlier in the lectures, where you're really figuring out what is it that ails the client, and how are we going to be able to figure out how our products and services are going to solve that problem for them. Develop a solution, develop a presentation, and convince them that this is the right way to go. So solution selling, and there's lots of texts, books out there that you can pick up and read on solution selling. Solution selling is a process. So, again, this is getting back to a bit of that diagnostic selling. You uncover and diagnose or clarify the customer's problem, and then you work with them to create a vision of how things could be better. You then develop a plan for implementing the vision. So this is really you figuring out, again, what's the problem, how are we going to fix it, and then how are we going to put a plan together to get from our vision of how we're going to fix this to actually implementing it and making it work. You can see how this is very much tailored to some things like a software solution. But this could be a piece of equipment. I used earlier the example of candy wrapping. I know it seems like a simplistic example, but it could be anything. It could be mining equipment. It could be equipment to launch space shuttles. Whatever the product is, whatever the item is, the hard goods, it's built in a way to satisfy a customer problem. So we tailor the product strategy. So a product strategy should be tailored to the customer's buying needs. Transactional buyers are very aware of their needs. Most of these customers have conducted their own research. So if you look at the different types of buying needs, transactional, consultative, customized, solution, or strategic alliance, a transactional buyer already understands their needs. I mean, a transactional buyer more or less is your Amazon buyer. They know what they want. They go out and they select it. They put it in their cart and they put their credit card information and they do the invoicing, they do the purchasing, the selection, they do it all themselves. They don't need a lot of help because they're very much aware of their needs and they know what product is going to fit their needs. The consultative buyer may lack needs awareness, so they need somebody that is going to help them diagnose the problem. I mean, a simple example of this might be you're looking to go buy, take a typical example, a consumer example, you're going to go buy a tent. And you're not exactly sure what to do. I mean, you could go to go to Target and buy a tent. You could go online and buy a tent. But if you want to go into a backpacking store because you're real serious about this tent solution, and you're not really sure about how to choose a tent, you'd go into a store and get somebody who can do this in person. You might even do this online. Get somebody who's going to be able to help clarify your needs and evaluate possible solutions. So a light backpacking tent might be the right solution for a single or two people versus a much larger, heavier tent that you're, because you're going to be carrying it, you're going to want something light and sturdy. So a customized solution appeals to the customer's desire for choices that are tailored to his or her needs. And so a customized solution, for lack of a better term, might be a bespoke tailored suit. So you go in and you're measured for a specific suit. You're not buying it off the rack. It'd be like a consumer version of a customized solution. This might be consultative versus customized. Let's use QuickBooks as an example. Consultative, you might be able to say, we'll ask a couple of questions. Looks like you've got 3 employees. QuickBooks is going to do the job for you. You want to be able to do a little bit of payroll. You want to be able to do some invoicing. Maybe you can even do that with QuickBooks Online, for example. But now you've got 30 or 40 or 300 employees, and you need something more of a customized solution based on the way your business works. So you're going to actually seek out somebody who can say, here's a product that, we'll use Peachtree as an example, that we typically take off the shelf, software program, and we're going to modify it or add in these specific modules that are specific to your particular business type. And so that might be more of a customized solution. So that's going to require more back and forth, probably more expensive, but let's face it, if it's more tuned to the customer's business, may very likely save them time and money because of it being customized. Developing a product strategy for the strategic alliance customer usually offers the greatest challenge. A study that proposed alliance partner can be very time-consuming, but the rewards of a successful alliance may be substantial. If the customer has complex buying needs, the salesperson may have to develop a custom solution. And so that's going to wind up being what we call product configuration, which we're going to talk about. So a strategic alliance partner, really now you've moved into, and a good example of this is, say you're an insurance company and you have hundreds of people who answer the phone, you have thousands of insurance agents out in the field across the country, and you need a solution that not only handles inbound customer service into a call center, but you need the ability for a tablet solution for folks to go out and do, they need to be able to go out and write estimates based on accidents. You need to be able to have a quoting system for insurance agents in an office. So you can see how that could be very customized and very much a strategic alliance partner with a software company working with an insurance company with the variety of their needs, not the least of which would be management's reporting needs. So that winds up getting into a product configuration. So product configuration is when you have a customer who's got complex buying needs and you're going to have to develop a custom fitted solution that brings together many parts of the product mix. So my example of an insurance company is a great one because you've got, product configuration that you've got to deal with. And then in order to do any type of quoting for this type of system, you'll have your own systems in-house that will let you do quotation management. Because now you got to figure out, okay, now that we've worked with the client and we know they've got these extremely complex specifications and needs, maybe just quoting the tablet version of the estimates is going to require thousands of hours of programming work and delivery times that are 18 months in the future or longer. You're going to be able to need to quote that and come up with a way to figure out how much it's going to cost to be able to pull this together. So this is, really you get into a custom solution, and the ability to quote that is going to be crucial because, let's face it, you're probably not the only company that the prospective customer might be working with. So you're going to need to be able to quote it and be able to be competitive. At the same time, you got to make sure that you're watching your bottom line and can do this and actually make money doing it for your company. So preparing written proposals, and I like this part because I've actually built proposal systems where we've actually, you put in a couple of pieces of data and it actually spits out quotes for you. So this is interesting, and we've done this. I've done this with simple things like Excel spreadsheets. I've done this with macros. I've done this with Word documents throughout my career. And so being able to produce a written proposal, the written proposal is your specific plan of action based on the facts. But let's face it, quoting systems and written proposals are, there's boilerplate versions of these, but sometimes these get to be extremely complex and they're going to have, scopes of work in them that are going to be extremely detailed. So the proposal is going to be broken up into 5 parts. You've got a budget, an overview, an objective, a strategy, a schedule, and a rationale. I once read about a company years ago when Silicon Valley was ramping up in Web 1.0 and around the year 2000. There was a construction company that was building buildings. They were doing construction and they were speccing out buildings, and they were able to build. They taught this in a course when I was teaching project management. And there's a construction company that literally was able to build buildings in half the time of their competitors. So the reason I bring that up is when you look at this proposal in the 5 parts, the .com companies were funded. They had lots of venture capital money. They had money. But what they didn't have was a headquarters. They didn't have a facility. They didn't have a place to put all their people. And so because of this construction company, they devised all kinds of different ways to essentially hack the project plan to figure out ways that they could build buildings faster. And speed was their number one. Obviously, quality was important, but speed was the key ingredient. They got the lion's share of the construction business as a result of the fact that they were able to be the fastest to be able to build. So schedule mattered the most. So it's always very important to figure out from your client standpoint. It's not important just to hit spec and what they'd like to do. It's important to also figure out, is there anything here that we might be missing that makes a big difference to them? Like we can get them in a building in half the time of our competitors. So so the written proposal is, again, it's part of your overall strategy. It's going to have that, the components that we talked about here. And simple things like objective, for example. Objective might look like we're going to reduce payroll costs by 10%. We might have something intangible like, customer satisfaction is tangible, but increasing security so that we don't get hacked by hackers. And certainly that's harder to quantify, but it's certainly something you'd want to be able to protect. Strategy. How you're going to describe how you're going to meet your objective. What's your strategy? Talk about some of the things that you're going to be able to do to be able to get that building built faster. Are going to be some of the things. And rationale. With a mixture of logic and emotion, you're going to basically present your rationale for why the prospective customer needs to take action now. And it should be, again, about benefits. The fact that using your firm and using your solution equals the benefit that the client perceives to be important, not just a bunch of features. Here's a bunch of things we can do. Well, that's great, but does that matter to the client? What are the benefits to the client? So you're going to need to be able to write an effective sales letter. One of the nice things about going through a college education is typically by the time you graduate, you should be able to write business writing, you should be able to write an effective sales letter. This is where you're going to describe your features and benefits. It is going to be where you position products and provide assurances to your clients. There should be some standard rules in a business letter. And I know a lot of people just really think that you can just send an email, but really you need to write a letter and attach it. So what it looks like visually, and whether you're attaching it to email or mailing it or overnighting it, oftentimes it's a good idea to do both, particularly in bid work, which we'll talk about. The proper use of white space in these documents, punctuation, grammar and spelling, and the minimal use of personal pronouns. So it's interesting that a lot of folks, particularly folks that are coming through school now, are texting, and they're using short messaging systems and so on. And the reality is, you still have to be able to command your language in writing and be able to do a great job doing it, because you don't know exactly all the time who's going to be looking at this. And so a sloppily written letter with bad punctuation and bad grammar is going to make you and your firm look like you can't do the job. So let me move on a little bit to talk about becoming a product expert. So one of the things that is a challenge when you're working with clients is that you build trust with them. And I went through this personally because I actually was a product support person, and I had tons of product knowledge about software that I was selling at a later time. And so product knowledge is a top-ranked characteristic of salespeople to build trust. And so knowing your product is everything. And I was very big when I managed sales teams across the country and internationally, and I would often run into salespeople that did not have strong product knowledge. And I find that to be simply inexcusable. In a lot of companies, you'll find that salespeople will often rely on product specialists who come in and do presentations and those types of things. And I very frequently required my salespeople to be able to do the presentations that the product specialist did. And a lot of salespeople looked at it and said, well, I don't know why I need to learn that. That's why we have product specialists. Well, because you're going to build a lot better rapport with your client if you know the product real well, instead of just relying on a specialist instead of you, the salesperson. So customers are going to seek out the product experts who can help them make intelligent decisions. I mean, you think about it. How are you really helping them make a decision and giving them comfort in the thought that this is going to be the solution if you really don't know the product yourself? You really, really need to have strong product knowledge. I can't emphasize that enough. But, some people want to take the shortcut and actually not learn it. I think that the top producing salespeople in a lot of cases will always be strong product knowledgeable experts. Common product information categories include product development, like how's it programmed, how's it built, what's our process, that we use to make our equipment. What's the quality, the QI, what's the quality improvement process that we use? I mean, how do we guarantee that this product that actually comes out of the factory or out of the testing that the software goes through to make sure that it's actually very good? Performance data and specifications, knowing specs. I know folks that can quote all kinds of sports statistics, but they don't know anything about the products that they're selling. Let's switch that up and turn that into, we know the most about our product and our specifications. Maintenance and service contracts, how fast are we going to be able to service this? What's the turnaround time? What's our service network look like? And you can learn a lot of that too, just from talking to clients and asking, how's the support line working? What's the turnaround time? And then price and delivery. A lot of salespeople are going to know a lot about price, but how about the delivery? How is it going to be installed? How's the software going to be written and installed? How is it going to be rolled out? I mean, all of those things come into play. Quantifying the solution. In most situations, the price quotation should be accompanied by information that creates value, not just throwing out a price. But you notice here, it talks about stainless steel bulkhead. What's your cost savings? Stainless steel rear door frame. What's your cost savings? Air ride suspension, cost savings. Not just how much is it, but what can it potentially save? If I do 1,000 of these using your new piece of equipment, how much am I saving over what I'm doing now because I went with this new piece of equipment? So you want to quantify that solution. And so you may have to do a cost-benefit analysis and do some calculations and do some analysis on what they have now to figure it out. A good example of this is a copier. Let's just take a business copier, for example, and say that a business has a copier installed currently. and a new model comes out that can actually speed up the department by the wait times are now half as long for documents to come off the printer versus now. What's that equate to in terms of employee time? You start adding that all up, you'd be surprised that a faster copier equals incredible savings in your staff time. But a lot of folks don't actually sit down and do the calculation. So again, some additional tools here to quantify and figure out what are the things that are actually going to do. LED lights, for example, last longer, approximate savings $50 per year times 10 years. What's that going to do to not just having to replace the light bulbs, but to the electric bill? And you don't think about this, but if we can not replace the light bulbs for 10 years, if the light bulbs normally have to be replaced every 2 years, that means we have to have a maintenance person go replace those every 2 years. So again, you can start to quantify the benefits and give a cost benefit to your client to show them how your solution actually saves them money over time. Again, some additional numbers here to show how much it's going to save over a certain amount of time. Your solution may be more expensive, but over time, it actually works out to be less expensive for the client. So spending a little bit more now may equal better savings down the road. A good example of that's an LED light bulb, just in the prior example. LED light bulb, again, just, the number of times you have to replace it, the amount of energy it uses is a perfect example of quantifying the solution. Imagine doing that times 10,000 light bulbs, how much that would save. One of the other objectives in this chapter is becoming a company expert. So it's very important that you know about your company and about your organization and the culture and the behaviors and the work pattern of the company you're in. Most companies are going to take over and have a culture. They're going to have norms. And so they're going to have a kind of a point of view. And that's going to come into play when you talk about things like support. When you use a company name, it a lot of times connotes the customer service or the value of that company just with the name of the company. So you take a name like Tesla. What does that mean to you? What does Mercedes-Benz mean to you? What does, for example, Lexus mean to you? So Lexus actually, as a company, has a statement of values that explains what's important to the company. So it talks about engineering, sophistication, and manufacturing quality, luxury and performance, an image and expectation of excellence, valuing the customer as an important individual, treating customers the way they want to be treated. See that theme? We've talked about that in other areas. Lexus is a total experience that reflects professionalism and a sincere commitment to satisfaction. It's doing it right the first time, caring on a personal level, exceeding customer expectations, and in the eyes of the customer, I am Lexus. So what they're trying to do is let the employees, the staff at Lexus, personify the values of Lexus. So clearly something like this that's stated versus not stated or developed over time that just kind of organically grows and no one really is really thoughtfully trying to manage has an impact on companies. So shared values are very important in a sales process because let's face it, people associate with brands for a reason. When you purchase a Lexus, you're not just buying a car, you're buying into a culture. Knowing your competition, this is another one of my things that I was very, very strong on managing sales teams. You've got to know what your competition is offering. You got to acquire knowledge of your competition and know what they're doing. Know their products like you know your own, or better, because you're going to be competing against these. And if a client says to you, "Oh, well, brand X does this," it's a really good idea for you to know in advance how they do it, how well they do it, what's the price for doing it. So if you know their strengths and weaknesses, you're better able to emphasize the things that you can do. If your competitor, the machine that they build actually, it produces at a faster rate than yours, but it has a much higher breakdown rate, that matters because the machine can't produce when it's broken down. So those are some things, or maybe parts are very difficult to get, or the service network's not as good. It might be a wonderful product, but if it doesn't get supported well, that can be a problem for the client. because things break. How are you going to find this information out? Well, you've got something at your disposal that salespeople didn't have in the past, and that's the web. The World Wide Web and the internet gives you web-based sources. You got catalogs, you got marketing information. You've got, the simplistic version of this is you got plant tours, you've got internal sales and sales support team members. You could use the competitor products. You can read and study publications, but let's face it, you can go on forums today, you can go on Facebook, you can find out what your competition is delivering and whether it's good or not. You can go out on message boards, you can go on Reddit and read forums, and you can find out all kinds of things about what's going on out there. That's going to be great sources of information for you when it comes to positioning your product. A feature benefit strategy, and actually I added in here FAB, right? Feature advantage benefit, so that features, and I used the example when you go into the electronics store and they read the card in front of you and say, here's what the features are of this television. They include the data, the facts, and characteristics of the product. But the benefits are whether they provide you, the customer, any benefit or not. So let's face it, if I watch old movies from the 60s that are not of good quality on a television, is it really, really key for me to have a 4K television? Probably not. If I'm a gamer and I need an extremely fast refresh rate, then I want a television that has a really fast refresh rate so that I can be more productive and more skilled or more competitive in gaming. So the benefits are what provides the customer a personal advantage or gain. It doesn't matter that it's a benefit to others, it matters that it matters to this client. And it's got to be very specific. You got to talk the customer's talk. So here's an example of a feature benefit, and you can stick advantages in here too. So the feature is hotel conference rooms were recently redecorated. Well, the advantage is obviously it's better than ones that aren't redecorated, but the means of this means all your meetings will be held in rooms that are attractive as well as comfortable, and people will have a better takeaway from that. They'll think, oh, this is great. There was a great facility. The facilities, all of our guest rooms were completely redecorated during the past 6 months, and most were designated as non-smoking rooms. This means your people will find rooms clean and attractive. In addition, they can easily select a non-smoking room. So you can see some examples of features and benefits. I mean, a hotel is a 24-hour room service. The advantage is, over ones that don't have 24-hour room service. I mean, people will choose a hotel based on the fact that they can get room service or not. And so that's an advantage over ones that don't have it. It also means your people can order food and beverages at their convenience. You take a look at the company, we have the best selection of motors in the area. And so this means to you the benefit, the choice of the best models to interface with your current equipment, and your equipment operates more efficiently. So again, it only is a benefit if it matters to the client. If the client says, look, I don't need a selection of motors, I just need the one. I don't need selection. I only use one type of motor. Either you have it in stock or you don't. Well, it doesn't matter to me that you stock 50 brands or 50 types. I only buy one type. So that all matters. So that gives you a bit of information about some of the features and benefits selling, talking about the product solutions that add value to the client, the importance of becoming a product expert, which I can't emphasize enough, that you need to have extremely strong product knowledge. The importance of becoming an expert regarding company knowledge. You need to know your company. You need to know how you excel versus your competitors. This expert knowledge of your competition is crucial. How do you position your product as being the best solution if you don't know what you're up against out in the competitive market? You may be able to solve that customer's problems, but if your price is twice as high as your competitor, you're going to have to be able to explain why that's so. Figuring out ways that you can get product, competitor, and industry information. Again, the web is your friend, and how to add value with that feature benefit strategy. And that concludes chapter 6.